Of all the broken stained glass in our sanctuary, the panel that we are studying this morning is the most visceral. The image is of the Holy Family, Joseph, Mary, and Jesus, in an event which is called the flight to Egypt, the flight to Egypt. Often, when we see images of this story, they exude a sense of calm and safety. Pictures two parents and a baby child and a donkey moving peacefully through a starry night. All is calm and all is bright. You can almost hear Nat King Cole's warm voice warbling Christmas carols behind the warm lights of a Christmas tree. But the romance of this image is broken into terrifying silence by bullet holes which are shot through Joseph's face. This violence penetrating our stained glass calls us to be aware of the violence inherent in this story, calls us to not run away from a certain truth about Christmas. This is a story about refugees fleeing a genocide in their homeland. King Herod had ordered his soldiers to find and murder every single infant living in and around Bethlehem. Mary and Joseph escaped with their baby son just in time to save his life. So when you see these peaceful images of the Holy Family on a starlit path to Egypt, you should hear the silenced screaming of an entire city in the background. The way we romanticize the story is consistent with how we reduce the stories of all immigrants and refugees and asylum seekers, in order to make their stories harmonious with the stories we tell ourselves. Depending on your politics, migrants are either vicious, law-breaking vermin, or they are industrious, hardworking heroes. Both narratives are dangerous myths. Whether you vilify migrants or you romanticize them, all it really amounts to is making people into props for a political agenda, which fundamentally erases the humanity of the people the stories are about. So let's restore the humanity of these asylum seekers, Joseph, Mary, and Jesus. Or maybe this morning we could call them Jose, Maria, and Jesus. Somebody say, Hosea, Maria, and Jesus. Amen. A family forced out of their homes by violence and terror, who take a treacherous journey into the heart of a great empire. To tell this story, let us begin with setting the scene. Hosea and Maria loved their home, but times were difficult and they were getting worse. The government was corrupt and the economy was collapsing. The officials were getting more despotic and cruel as time went on. They had started out as noble and even heroic champions of the people, but now they were in deep with the cartel and paranoid to the point of insanity. The troubles were quiet and mundane at first. Inflation and unemployment were on the rise. And then it followed that more and more young men had to join the cartel out of desperation for opportunity and uplift. They were given machine guns and told to guard the poppy fields and the avocado orchards. Then young women began disappearing. There were whispers about human trafficking. Nobody knew what was true. Everyone was afraid. And then the cartels began splitting and fighting each other. Bodies were being burned and buried in the avocado orchards. Chaos was spreading. Lately, Jose and Maria had been hearing rumors about the president. Everyone knew that he was jailing his opposition, but he was going even further now in his paranoia, killing their wives and their children, especially the children. Jose's hometown was home, in fact, to one of the few opposition leaders left alive, and it happened to be one of Jose's uncles. Everyone in the family group chat was talking about getting out before it was too late. Everyone was saying that it's only a matter of time before the president's men come for Tio. And there was fear that they wouldn't just murder his immediate family. The soldiers would come for all of them and for all of their children. The talk was getting darker. There were rumors about a growing trade of trafficked babies. They had heard about ships in international waters where unimaginable and unspeakable trades were happening. When Jesus was born, in the midst of all this darkness and terror, it was as if a light of peace and hope and joy had come tumbling into the world. It was the happiest night of Maria and Jose's life. It was a night that changed everything for them. For the next few weeks, Jose and Maria talked every day about what they should do. In the dark hours of morning, while Maria was breastfeeding Jesus, they argued tensely. Maria wanted to stay in their country and try to make a living, to wait out the bad times. She told Jose to trust that God was going to protect them. But one night, Jose had a dream about baby Jesus being kidnapped. And so the next day, he decided with his cousins and his siblings that it was time. They packed as much as they could carry in their backpacks and left everything else behind. Jose's cousin was on TikTok, and he had found that smugglers were openly advertising guaranteed passage to the border. The journey would take them through a stretch of treacherous jungle called the Darien Gap. They had two options. They could either spend a few $100s per person to go on foot, or they could spend a few $1,000s to take a shortcut. Like most asylum seekers on this journey, they decided to save their money, and they chose the more economical option. The Darien Gap is a real place. It is a jungle of rainforests and swamps that stretches across the border of Colombia and Panama. It's about 66 miles long, and it covers the land from coast to coast. It's full of natural hazards, mudslides, raging rivers, poisonous snakes, sweltering temperatures, and human hazards, including gangs that extort money through violence and other means. One refugee who made this journey described it. He said, "This is a nightmare with 1,001 demons. I saw a child get dragged down the river when he let go of his parents' hands. I've seen bodies drowned, 4 of them. I've smelled bodies decomposing in the ravine." The Darien Gap is known as one of the most dangerous places in the world. When people get injured, they are pushed to the side of the trail, where they remain helpless, waiting for nature to take its course. The jungle is littered with human bones. But migrants and traffickers are not the only people in the Darien Gap. Strange stories have been emerging of encounters between the asylum seekers and adventure tourists from the United States and Australia. These are tourists who pay thousands of dollars to be dropped in the middle of the wilderness and experience some of the world's most challenging hiking and whitewater rafting. If they are injured, they are airlifted out of the jungle by helicopter. There are stories of migrants encountering groups of gringos who are taking selfies in the deep wilderness while they are dying of thirst. This is the condition of the world we live in. Maria, Jesus, and Jose make it through the Darien Gap, but a few of Jose's cousins do not. They're swept away in mudslides, where they disappear in the middle of the night, and nobody hears from them again. Those who make it through arrive in Panama exhausted, and their journey north has just begun. For weeks, they beg for food and pesos. They walk hundreds of miles. Occasionally, they get a ride for a stretch from a kind truck driver. Once, a family in Guatemala lets them sleep in their garage. When they arrive at the border of Texas, they are met by men in beige uniforms and reflective sunglasses who sort them into warehouses. Jesus has a small cough when they arrive, and one of the border guards tries to separate him from Maria. But she has heard about what they do with children after separating them from parents. They ship them to states like New York and Illinois, where they disappear into a foster system. She screams and cries until the border guard leaves her alone and lets her keep Jesus with her. For a few days, nothing happens. They wait. They're given bologna sandwiches, and every family gets 1 bottle of water per day. And then one morning, they are told that they have an hour to pack up everything. They're taken outside, where 5 large buses are idling. They are told to get inside. Some of them ask where they are going, but the border guards don't tell them. The ride takes 20 hours. When they stop for gas, the driver gets out of the bus, but the migrants aren't allowed. The doors are locked. The onboard toilet hasn't been working. Some of the migrants are guessing where they are going. Some of them say New York City. Some of them say Chicago. At 4 a.m., they find out when they arrive in the center of Chicago and are told to get out. A social worker is standing outside, having a tense conversation with the driver. The driver just shrugs and says he's just doing his job. The migrants get off the bus and wait in the cold, while a few government workers with clipboards ask for names. Do you have any family in the U.S.? What is your final destination? When they get to Jose and Maria, they say they have no family in Chicago. They came to the border with family, but they were separated, and only one of Jose's cousins is here with them. They wait for a while in a van while everyone is processed. And then they're driven down State Street to a large building with no windows. Inside there are cots. Jose and Maria are given a blanket, fresh socks, and diapers for Jesus. And then they are told that they have 30 days in the shelter. Jose is advised to find a job quickly and secure housing for his family, or else leave Chicago and make a home elsewhere. They can apply for asylum to stay in the U.S. and become citizens, but it will take a long time, and the outcome is uncertain. There are 250,000 people like them right now, and the system is overwhelmed. Nobody knows what will happen. So day after day, Jose and Maria wrap up baby Jesus into a donated blanket, and they stand on a corner near Whole Foods, asking everybody who goes in if they can spare some money or some food. The Christmas decorations are up in the windows. Across the street, there's a church, and they come out and put up a manger scene of Joseph and Mary and baby Jesus wrapped in a blanket. On one side of the street, the story we tell ourselves about Christmas. A simple, tidy, and plastic manger scene, unchanging and lifeless. On the other side of the street is Jose and Maria and Jesus, a picture of Christmas broken by violence and neglect. And that is where the light shines through. Amen.